Hello, Nicole, and welcome to our You Flourish podcast. I am so excited to have you here today. I know our listeners are going to get so much out of our conversation. And now, for those who are tuning in, Nicole and I, we haven't known each other very long, but we actually have encountered each other in a number of places. I know did we meet at that Bible study with Carly Mock, Nicole? Is that
Yes, I
how
think we
met? Okay.
did. Yep. And then it sort of spiraled into like, oh, you do bio girls, I do bio girls, and you're part of these groups. I know these people, and now we're just meshed together all the time.
Yes, and now we're just connected. And I know it was so much fun. You and I had the opportunity to do lunch at Beer and Fish downtown Fargo recently, which is a super fun location, and just talk about your faith story. And so today I just know that this story that you have is going to touch our listeners' hearts. And I'm really excited for people to get to know you a little bit better. And so maybe we just dive right in. And I would love for you to go ahead and just share a little bit more, Nicole, about who you are and tell us about your faith journey up to this point.
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Nicole. I live in West Fargo, North Dakota, with my husband and dog. And I work at Bobcat as the social media manager there during the day. I grew up in the Twin Cities area, and then I went up to Grand Forks for college at the University of North Dakota and got my marketing degree. And then that's how I ended up in Fargo. I got a job down here, and I love the community. I love the space I'm in. I love my friends. So it's been a really, really great place to begin adulthood, I guess you could say. My faith journey, I grew up in the Catholic faith. My parents were really good about going to church on Sundays and enrolling us in religion classes, which we went to on Wednesdays, kind of just going through the motions of going to church and learning what they said and then going home. But I noticed there wasn't a ton of conversation once we left the church. There wasn't a lot of, how do we take what we learned today and apply it to our lives? Or how do we live out the life of Jesus? It was just kind of, we went to church, we listened, but there wasn't always a ton of conversation. Sometimes there was, but not always. Went through the motions, and I got my first communion. I was baptized as a baby, got my first communion, and then I was confirmed in 8th grade. And I think 8th grade, right around that time where I got confirmed, was sort of the beginning of me going, what is confirmation? You know, I went through confirmation, I went through the process, I did what was asked of me, but I don't think I had a full understanding that the fact of being confirmed means you are actively making the choice to confirm your faith in Jesus as your savior. That wasn't a connection for me. It was more just, this is what I'm supposed to do, so I'm just going to do it. And then as I kind of went through high school, there was always that little thing in my ear that was like, you should figure out what that means. What does that mean to you? And I kind of pushed it aside. I got very busy with school, and I was very involved in school. And I think it was the month before I left for college that really kicked off my adult faith journey. And I was about to go to college. My sister was about to be in law school. My parents were selling their house. Things were kind of stressful. Everybody was kind of in a jumble. And I remember very particularly the night that kicked it off. It was a Sunday evening, and I asked my parents if they wanted to go to church with me, because I was just feeling this, like, I need to know there's some type of stability in my life. And I wasn't feeling it because there was all this huge change happening. My parents were selling the house I grew up in. I was going off to college. My brother was going off to college. My sister was going to law school. There was just so many things happening. And I asked if they wanted to go to church with me, and they kind of just said, no, not really. It's 5 o'clock on a Sunday night. I want to be home and have dinner and prepare for the work week. And to no fault of them, they just said no. And I said, okay, I'm going to go by myself, because I knew that there was a church in town that had evening mass on Sundays. I had never gone to the church before in my life. I had gone once with my friend because her family went there when I was in like 7th grade. But my family didn't attend that church, but I knew they had it. So I went. And I walked in, and I sat in a back pew, and I prayed before Mass began. And I remember just bowing my head and saying, I need a sign that things are going to be okay. I just need a sign that you are there. I need some type of comfort. And I had my eyes closed, my hands crossed like this, and all of a sudden I felt somebody come and touch my shoulder. It scared me, and I turned and looked, and there was a man standing right next to me. in the pew, and he looked at me, he goes, "Hi, sorry to bother you. Have you ever read during church before?" And, I'm in church, I'm not going to lie. I had read in church before. So I just said, "Yes, I have." He goes, "Awesome. Would you be willing to do the readings today?" And I was just like, "Sure, why not?" Mind you, I don't attend this church. I don't come here regularly. I'd not been there since seventh grade. It's like, sure, great. Would love to do the readings. Can't wait. Started walking up the aisle, and I looked up and I went, "This is not what I meant." To God, I'm like, "No, this isn't what I was talking about. This isn't what I wanted." He didn't care, which is fine. So then we got us to the front. He showed me the book. He goes, "Here are the two readings. Father will gesture you to come up. Don't worry about it. Like, we'll give you all the signs. Don't worry about knowing what you need to do." So I went up, I did the reading, looked out, didn't know a single person in the church, and I got done. And then I sat down in the first pew because that's the closest seat to where I was standing at the front of the church. So I just sat down in the pew. There was nobody in the pew with me. And Father started giving his homily and talking about the gospel that day. And he was telling the story of when Jesus went out on the boat into the water and was telling them, "If you believe in me, if you have faith in who I am and what I do, you can walk on water." And they said, "No, I can't. No, I can't." He said, "Yes, you can." And he let them walk into the water. And when they got into the water, they could walk on water. And then they got scared. They went into the water. And Jesus lent out his hand and pulled him into the boat. And the Father explained, "The church and your faith is the boat. You can leave the boat. You will leave the boat. You have to go walk on water or go live your life and have faith. And guess what? Things are going to happen that you're going to lose faith. You are going to need that extended hand, and that's okay, because guess what? Jesus's hand is always going to be extended out for you. He's going to pull you back into the boat, but you have to take his hand and come back to the boat." And I was uncontrollably sobbing in the front pew by myself, because it was absolutely the story that I needed to hear, that my boat was always there, and that I had spent so much time walking on water and drowning in the water and not looking up for Jesus's hand. And I had finally that night just grabbed it, and he pulled me in the boat, and he was like, "Here you go. Here's the story you need to know." And it has stuck with me. I remember leaving. I sat in my car after church and was crying because it was just so powerful. And I have never had a moment like that in my whole life. Like, that was the Holy Spirit absolutely coming to me and saying, "Here's what you needed to hear. This is the story you needed to pay attention to." And it totally changed the way that I looked at my faith. It changed the way that I felt about my faith. Yeah, totally moving. And then I went into college, and I was going to church every Sunday, which people find very shocking, but I had a really good support system. I had a couple of friends, one really good friend, Jake. He was very good about asking me if I wanted to go to church. He picked me up, we'd go to church. And it was very nice to have that community going to school, just because college is different. There's so many experiences and so many things you can do. And to just have that constant grounding was really helpful. Then, you move through college, you start to become an adult and experiencing new things. And I stayed pretty steadfast in my faith. I lived the college life, but also wanted to make sure that people knew I was a Christian and it was something that I believed in. And then tragedy hit my family. After I graduated college, my cousin passed away unexpectedly from suicide. And that was probably one of the most altering moments for me, just because suicide is one of those forms of death that is really, really hard to wrap your brain around. Just because you love somebody so dearly too, and you have this brain space that, like, but I love them so much. How did they not know that? Or we all love them so much. How did they not see that? Did I not show them that enough? Or did they want to tell me something and they didn't feel like they could? Or the millions and thousands of questions that run through your brain. And then you get angry, the whatever 5 stages of grief. Anger, I held on to for a very long time. And sometimes I was angry at her. Sometimes I was angry at myself. Sometimes I was really angry with God. I was like, you have got to be kidding me. Why didn't you make her know that she was loved? Like, you make me know that, you know, why didn't you make her know that? Or why is this happening to my family? Or, I mean, again, the millions of questions that run through your brain. So I kind of pulled back from my face because I had a lot of unanswered questions. And my best friend, Macy, invited me to go to church one day. And she goes, I know that you go to St. Michael's, but I'd really love to invite you to go to Freedom, which is a non-denominational church in Grand Forks, downtown Grand Forks. And I kind of was like, I don't know about it. And she's like, just come. If you hate it, I'll never tell you to come again. And I said, okay, fine, I'll go. And I went and I walked in. Everyone was like, good morning, good morning, good morning. You know, and I'm used to like quiet. Nobody talk. Just sit down. Don't say anything. Like, good morning, good morning, morning. Do you want a cup of coffee? Do you want a cup of coffee? And I was like, I mean, yes, I do.
Can I
You want a
actually
cup of
drink coffee in the pew, right?
yeah, that's exactly what I felt. They're like, yeah, bring it in there, bring it in there. And I, you know, I walked in and everyone's talking and it's loud. And I was like, nobody talked to me because I don't know what to say. And anyways, they got started with worship, which worship is probably the place that I connect most. It did when I was younger. Hymns, like those like really strong traditional hymns, they just speak to me. The music is what moves me and where I start to understand a lot of the verses and the hymns and the things that we learn in the Bible. And they started singing worship music, but they had like guitars and drums and beats. And I was like, this is also, I'm not used to this. Where is the organ? Where is the old school organ? Like, I'm missing the organ here. Can't find it. So, but it was great. And then they started giving the message. And what really caught my attention was I left there going, that made a ton of sense. They would take sections of the Bible, read them, and then break them down and explain them during the context of the time that it was written and translate it into how can I apply that to my life now? Because our lives back then and our lives now are very different, i.e. cell phones, technology, transportation, the way we live, all of those things. It's very different, but they took it and made it applicable to my life that I could go home and say, I can do that. Or I never thought about it that way. And it really triggered something in my brain to say, they're reading the same book that I have learned my entire life. And I have never heard that before. I have never thought about it like that before. Nobody has ever explained it to me like that before. So I kind of had this weird spot I was in because I was very used to what I grew up with in going back to the Catholic Church and the tradition and this idea that, you know, you have to be there. And I still do love the tradition of what the church offered, but there was also that piqued interest of, I feel like I actually leave Freedom Church going, I know what I need to do at home. I know what I need to apply at home. I know what I need to do to my friends. I know what I need to do in the workplace. You know, those types of questions that kept kind of pulling me back to go learn more, go listen more, go apply more. And it was tugging me back. And then I moved to Fargo and Macy also was Fargo. We're kind of just like this little unit. We just go everywhere together. She invited me to go to Prairie Heights, and it's a very similar structure to Freedom, just a little bit bigger. But I really love it because one, the music is loud, and I like loud music, and it's great. But also the message is just, I leave there going, I can do that. I understand exactly what you've just said, and I can apply that to my life, or I can apply that to my thinking, and it's almost made me more open to talking about my Christianity. And not that I was afraid to talk about it before, but I also always felt like when I said that I am Catholic, I almost got this little like, oh, a little bit growing up. And I don't think people did it intentionally or do it intentionally or have anything bad with it. But the Catholic faith is so structured that it can be such a turnoff to folks that sometimes I would just say, oh, I'm a Christian. And I wouldn't openly say that I'm a Catholic. And now I'm not afraid to do that. And I think it's because I actually understand what I was being taught. But I think going to Prairie Heights has also opened me up to seeing other Christian faiths. Like, we're all reading the same book. Like, I just wish that I could tattoo that on my forehead. We are all reading the same book. We are all following the same guy. We are all trying to be like Jesus. I just wish that I could do that, because I think growing up, I always felt like it was like, okay, but you're Catholic, but you're Lutheran, but you're not gonna, like, you're the same, but you're different. We're different, but we're the same. Like, I wish it would be framed that way. We're different, but we're the same. And one thing that opened my eyes, Coach Bubba Schweigert, I have seen him at St. Michael's many a Sunday. He is very steadfast in his faith, and he is a man that I admire. And I went to Freedom one day, and he walked up on the stage, and I went, "What are you doing here?" And then I was like, "I bet he wonders what I'm doing here." And he got up and he did something that has really stuck with me as well. And I think I was meant to be there that day. He walked up, he introduced himself. He said, "Hi, I'm Coach Bubba Schweigert, and I'm a Christian. I also coach football at the University of North Dakota." And he spoke about how we introduce ourselves with our occupation, probably 99% of the time. Like, "Hi, I'm Nicole. I work at Bobcat." Okay, that's what you do, but that's not who you are. Who are you? What do you believe in? What are your values? What are things you like to do on the weekend? Where do you work? Not the other way around. And we tend to do it the other way around. And I have no idea why, but I do it. I do it all the time. But he totally changed my thinking on, when we introduce ourselves, why should we be afraid to say, "Hi, I'm Nicole. I live in Fargo, North Dakota. I'm a Christian. I attend this church. I work at Bobcat during the day. I have a husband and a dog." Why don't we do that? And I had no answer to it, but I have really tried to make an effort to change the way that I talk about myself, or change the way that I introduce myself. Especially even in the workplace. I had a coworker talk to me a couple months ago, probably 6 months ago now. And my niece was born a preemie very early. So homegirl, as strong as she is, sometimes she just gets sick and she has to go to the doctor. And she had a small scare over Christmas. And I was really nervous about it, because she was on her way back to the hospital. And my coworker just leaned over and she goes, "Are you okay?" And I just briefly explained the situation. And she goes, "Would you mind if I prayed for you? It's okay if you don't pray, but it's something I believe in. Is it okay if I pray for you?" I have literally never thought about doing that for somebody, but it was the nicest thing I have been offered, to just have someone offer, ask, and deliver. That's all she had to do. And she didn't, I said, "Yeah, that'd be great. Actually, could I pray with you? I do pray. I'm a Christian." And she goes, "Oh, me too." Boom, instant connection. We talk about going to church. We talk about all of those things. And all she had to do was say, "Hey, is it okay if I pray for you?" Putting no pressure on me to be the same, but to showcase her faith and what she believes in, and to try to support me. It's just not something you hear every day, but it opened the door to say, "Oh, you're a Christian, me too." We've talked about where you go to church. Where did you go to church growing up? Are you going to put your daughter in Sunday school? What do you like about your church? What would you change? Like, we have these conversations, and it's not weird. It's not uncomfortable. We're both open about talking about it. But what a great way to just introduce that part of your life to somebody, and to support them in a small way that you may know how. I just thought it was very cool. It was very cool of her.
Wow, Nicole. Well, there's so much. My mind is going in a million directions right now. The way that you tell your story and share about your faith, it's so beautiful. And even just thinking about this concept of our Christianity, it's not, it's so much more than, or we are so much more than what we do for a living. And I think that, do you find that the more you've had conversations about your Christian faith, does it become easier to open up that window to others? Or when you meet new people, how do you open up that conversation?
Yeah, I think it has become easier. And I think also, I admittedly, I don't sit down and read the Bible, because I always grew up being told it's not a book to be read front to back like a book. It's a book to, like, read and then pause and then reflect and comprehend. and then read again, and the sections are so different in their stories. And so I've admittedly never sat down and read it cover to cover. But I think being able to understand the stories that were told, especially, the big stories like Easter, Christmas, Lenten season, those big ones, and not even so much like he was born or he resurrected, but everything that surrounds it too, all of the prophecy, all of those types of things, being able to understand it more has made me more open to having those discussions, and also being willing to say, I've never thought about it that way, or I've not heard that yet, or I have not read that section yet. So it's definitely made me more open to speaking about it for sure. And I think the way that I've more easily begun the conversations is just a very simple, people ask, what are you doing this weekend? Simply throwing out, oh, and then, I have church at 9 o'clock at Prairie Heights, or just what time you're going, where you're going. And then it kind of opens that door for them to go, oh, I know people who attend church there, or I also attend church there, or, oh, I go to St. Anne's, or whatever their response might be. It can also be an invitation to say, would you like to come with? I invited my mother-in-law to church for Easter because they were in town, and I was a little nervous just because you never know how people are going to react to a church that they've never been in. And she left church and she goes, I would come back here every single Sunday. Just the willingness to open a door changed her mindset and the way she thought, and she was so moved by it that she's like, I'm going to tune in on mine. So being able to open the door for other people is more powerful than I think we think it is. I had a coworker at my job when I worked at the Alumni Association Foundation in Grand Forks for the University of North Dakota. She started a Bible study group. And at first I was like, this is so weird. We're at work. This doesn't make sense. But she brought up, it's a daily prayer book. And for whatever day it was, she would copy scan it for everybody so everyone had a printout of it. We would sit around, we'd read it. Well, somebody would read it, and then we would just kind of discuss it. And then we would say, does anyone have any prayer requests? Does anybody have somebody or themselves that you'd like the group to pray for? And admittedly, the first time we did it, I was kind of like, it was a little weird, but kind of nice. I looked forward to it every week. I'm not even kidding you. It was so great. It was so wonderful. Such a wonderful group of ladies. And everybody's got stuff going on. And I think what it did was open this idea of, we're not where we work. That's not who we are. It's what we do. But who are you? And it was a really great way to get to know who those women were and the things going on in their life. We're always like, why didn't you get to this email? And why didn't you do this project the minute I asked you to do it? Well, sitting in that group, oh, she's got something going on in her life. Oh, she's got a lot on her plate. Oh my gosh, why are you even at work? You should be at home taking care of your family. It opened up the door of, we are not what we do. That is not who we are. And I think that was also a really important part of my life, of opening that idea of, we're all reading the same book. I mean, there was a lady that was Catholic there. There was a lady who went to non-denominational church. It was a lady who was Lutheran. We're all sitting around. We're all reading the same book. We're all praying for each other. And that for me was such a connection moment of, we're all Christians. We're all trying to be like Jesus, and we're all not perfect. And that's okay. That's okay. It's so good to have the community, even in the workplace, to have the community, and also to have the support. Our CEO, she was fantastic, and she really supported it. I think she may have even joined us a couple of times. Like, she was like, if you guys find a space to do that, please go do that. Create that community at work. And I just so appreciated her support of saying, take 20 minutes out of your day, go connect over whatever it is that day, get together, connect, make that connection. So to have a supportive workplace for something like that, game changer.
So that was in Grand Forks. So now that you're here in Fargo, what are ways that you find that you can keep your faith at the forefront of your mind throughout your days now at your job at Bobcat and beyond? How do you keep your faith strong?
Yeah, I think in a couple ways. I am a visual person. So I have even like my screensavers sometimes will just have a certain verse that I need to be reminded of. Or I'm a paper person, so I have my planner, and even just having sticky notes or writing something on a day of the week to just remind myself, take a step back. This is work and it's important, and I truly do love what I do, but also keeping in mind to emulate Jesus, emulate who he is, emulate his kindness, extend that kindness and that respect to other people. I have it on my mirrors. I go home every lunch to let my dog out. And so I have like sticky notes on my mirror in my bathroom, and they're just gentle reminders. And I truly believe going to church on Sundays is such a good reset for my whole week. Like I jump into Monday with that in the back of my mind versus if I don't go that Sunday, well, now it's 2 weeks behind me and it's further back in my brain and it's not at the forefront. And I also think having those people, my coworker who offered to pray for me, it's nice to just have those people that, they just get it, and we can have the conversations if we want to or need to or have to. Yeah, it's not always easy at all. It's not always easy at all because we get wrapped into the next big thing or trying to show off for what, I don't know, but it's in our brains. It's not always easy, but it's definitely something that I strive to do. Having coffee connects with friends too, I think is super important, to just connect, say hey to each other, and then just say, what do you have going on in your life? How have you connected to God lately? And also finding where you connect with him, right? Church is important, but some people connect with him in nature. That is big for them. Me, it's music. So I have Life 97, is it 97.1, 97.9?
0.9, yes.
0.9, okay, yeah, it's preset in my car, so I don't even know what it is anymore. I just click to it. But even just turning that on, not touching the stereo and listening to it on the way home or listening to it on the way to work or, whatever I'm doing, just those little moments where you can have it in your brain and subconsciously, I think that makes a huge difference as well.
Yes, I'm still wanting you. I think you should still share your music playlist with me. Or you said you have a really good playlist. Maybe even our listeners, I could link it in the show notes if that's something that you're willing to share. Also, I'm big into music and I appreciate what you shared. I know that I always feel God's presence the most when I'm listening to a song. And I also find it funny because I'll say I don't have any Bible verses memorized, and then I'll realize I actually do, but they're all because of songs.
Yeah.
The song lyrics that I've learned growing up, that type of thing. So no, I love that music is a big one for you. That really speaks to me as well, Nicole. And yeah, I appreciate that. Before I forget, I wanted to just quick circle back to, I know you had talked about your cousin committing suicide and how that was such a dark time in your life and that created some doubts. And I have a feeling that it's very possible that our listeners, someone might be going through something really tough. I'm not saying that it's necessarily a suicide, but just a phase of maybe doubt or trying to reconnect with their faith. Do you have any advice for people based on maybe how you got through that time? What would your advice be to someone struggling right now and kind of battling with their faith a little bit?
Yeah, I think the best advice is I don't even know if it's good advice or advice at all, but it's listening to the words that God has spoken to us. It's be not afraid. And in a lot of the music, to go back to that, it's God is with you in the hills and valleys, and God did not promise us sunshine and roses of a life. He did not promise us a life of no tragedy if we were believers. Look at what happened to Jesus before he was crucified. I mean, they literally tortured him. And he's the Son of God. Like, God did not promise us sunshine and roses of a lifetime, but he did promise to always have his hand extended to us and to pull us into the boat and remind us that there is glory in God, and there is glory in what he's created. And I think that the really difficult hump to get over is when people say, there's a reason, or, God has his reasons, because you're like, okay, great, would love to know what they are. Like, I'm sitting here and I just want to know why. And that's the biggest hump, I think, getting over for me was, okay, yeah, there might be a why, but nobody has actually told me what it is yet. And I don't even know if there's really advice to get through that other than acceptance and just knowing he has a reason. I might not know what it is, but there's got to be some type of reason. And I very well intend to ask when I get the opportunity to ask him one day. But I think the advice is just remembering what he's told us and that he's always there. But to those people, I genuinely pray for you, and I genuinely hope that you can find the light in the tunnel, because it can get very dark. But that light is always there. Like, he's always knocking on our door. We just have to answer. And we may not be very happy at the time, but he's there during the sadness. He is there during the hardships. And I think that's the tough part. Everyone's like, but there's famine and there's cancer and there's depression, and why would God make us live in a world like this? He didn't promise us a perfect world. He gave us the world and said, do with it what you will, and I will be there to love you and to, extend my arm. He did not promise us sunshine and roses. We get sunshine and roses sometimes, which is so wonderful. I think about like the amazing moments in our lives. But I think it's just remembering, like, God is there to support us and to love us and to extend grace and mercy and to be a guide for us too. I think that's the brain switch that I had to make, was being a follower of Jesus does not mean I'm going to have a perfect life.
Well, and it's interesting hearing you talk about that, asking the question why. I actually had another podcast conversation with another one of our guests who was talking about it's almost impossible to sit and ask that question why, because you might not ever get the answer. And so instead of asking why, let's turn it to kind of, God, how will you help me get through this tough time? And how can I lean on your love and support through this time? Because truly, I mean, you're probably never going to get a clear answer as to why your cousin committed suicide. And that's such a hard thing to deal with. And I think that, to your point, there's so many difficult things going on in our world. And if we sit here and we just ask why is this happening? We're going to be stuck in that spiral forever, really asking why, when in reality, sometimes we might see a glimmer of hope or see, that, when we look back, it's kind of like, oh, that's why that was meant to happen that way, right?
Yep.
Because there are certain circumstances in our lives that I know for me, when I look back, it's very clear. And it's like, oh, that's why God had me go down that path instead of that path, that type of thing. But there are, I know, sometimes going to be times where we just maybe won't ever get a clear answer, but it's just that blind faith and just trusting. And I just love your story, Nicole, about the, Jesus in the boat, and just remembering he's just there with his arm stretched out, ready to pull us back in the boat whenever we're ready to get in. He's there for us. And that in order for us to be able to walk on water, we need to continue to remain faithful and trust that he's got it under control. So no, I really appreciate you sharing that story. I think our listeners will love it.
I think too, for me, it's always been, it will continue to be, so my cousin, sorry, I'll backtrack quickly. My cousin's parents are my godparents, and I'm very close with them. They lived like 4 miles away from me growing up. So Tia and I had sleepovers a lot, and I spent a lot of time with my aunt and uncle, and they are wildly faithful people. My Tia's sister, Ashley, my other cousin, I have a lot of cousins, so let's just start there. But Tia's sister, Ashley, I'm very close with, and she is also just so steadfast in her faith. And I admire it so deeply. And to see them continue to have faith in God, and, for them, that's their daughter, that is their sister. And to see them have such steadfast faith in God, even after Tia passed away, was extremely admirable, and something that I turned and looked to them and I was like, they still have a very strong faith in God, and they continue to lean on him. And that's not to say they don't have bad days. Everyone has bad days, but they were so faithful during the whole time, and they continue to be to this day. That was also huge for me, is finding people to emulate my faith after, finding people that I go, wow, I want to be that faithful. I want to love God that much. I want to be able to just accept not knowing the answer and being okay with it. And they're amazing. I admire them so deeply. And I look at my cousin, I think she's 4 years older than me. And she, with her son and new daughter, she continues to bring the life of Tia to the kids, and saying this is who she was. And, Jesus loves her, Jesus loves you. And it is so amazing to me. So I think another piece of advice is finding the community that you can go, I want to emulate that. I want to have that kind of faith, and watch them and listen to them and see the things that they do, and listen to the things that they say, and read the things that they're reading, and be able to have conversations too. I think that's the biggest thing. I talk to them a lot, and we have conversations. We miss her. We wish she was here. Gosh, I'm real mad at her for leaving. God is still good. And that is always how the conversation ends. God is still good. We had so many good years with her. We don't know why. We don't know why she had to go early, but what we had of her was humor, joy, funny. I already said humor, but she was just funny. And being able to say, we had what we had, we love her, and God is good. It's not easy. It's not an easy thing to accept, but when you have the strength of family or community of whatever you're going through, it makes it a little easier.
Well, and I find, I think throughout my life, the times when I've been able to be the strongest in my faith is when I'm surrounding myself by other people who are strong, if not stronger than me in their faith, and always seeking out people who are leading those godlike lives and focused on heaven and not focused on earthly things. And I think that's something that is so important. I know that there have been times in my life where I haven't been around a lot of Christians, or if I was around Christians, I didn't know that they were Christian because I didn't open up the conversation. And so I think those two, both surrounding yourselves with Christians, but also being willing to at least say, hey, I'm a Christian, that can open up the conversation. And you might be surprised by the people around you who are Christians, because I definitely know, to your point of kind of what you talked about earlier, where, sometimes we're Christians, but we're very quiet about it. It's a very personal thing. And so until you warm that up with conversation with someone else, it can be very hard and feel isolating and feel like nobody else here believes the same thing as me. And then you might be surprised if you start talking about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think too, as we mentioned before, it's also be willing to learn. I think before there was a lot of like, I don't need to learn that from you, or you learn that differently from me, or we learned it differently, whatever that looks like. It shuts you down from having open conversations. But just be willing to say, I didn't know that. I've never heard that. That's good to know. That's really interesting. Can you send that to me? I'd like to learn. Like, I think that being willing to learn and being willing to say you don't know everything opens the door to have those conversations comfortably. I think people are so afraid of feeling dumb. People are afraid to feel dumb, so they don't want to have conversations about things they don't know. I will always and forever want to never be the smartest person in the room. If I'm the smartest person in the room, I'm in the wrong room. That goes for work, that goes for church, that goes for anything. I'm the smartest person in the room, I'm in the wrong room. I want to
Mm,
learn something. I want to say, I didn't know that. Good to know. Cool. Send me the book. Whatever it is.
absolutely. I completely agree with that. So always seeking out people who, um, yes, maybe know a little bit more about you or more than you about their faith.
Mm-hmm.
Seeking out people that can mentor you, help you grow. So that's one of my challenges for our listeners today is just find out who in your office is a Christian. Open
Mm-hmm.
that conversation. I think it feels scary, but um, it's not as hard to slide in as you might think. So just saying something as simple as, hey, I'm going to church on Sunday, or can I pray for you if someone's having a tough week? Those are some of the little tips that I know, Nicole, you've shared. Are there any other tips that you have for how people can integrate their faith into their day-to-day work that we've forgotten to mention?
Yeah, I think just the subtle things too is, if you can alter the screensaver on your computer or the wallpaper, they've got, I mean, literally millions of different screensavers you can find on Pinterest or Google or whatever. You can even make them. And just change to your screensaver. And when you step away from your computer, you lock it. Maybe somebody walks by and goes, "Oh, I didn't know they were a Christian." Or, "Oh my gosh, that's my favorite verse." Maybe they don't even know what it is. They could say, "Hey, what is that thing on your screensaver?" It opens the door to just have the conversation. Maybe they say, "Hey, I want to learn more." Maybe they just go, "Oh, cool," and walk away. You still brought it up. You still opened that door. If people want to walk through, they can. If they don't have to. It's kind of like when Jesus puts his arm out. You can grab it if you want to. I highly recommend it. But if you don't want to, you don't have to. He's not going to force you, but he's never going to leave you. You're never going to shut that door to somebody. At least I hope you don't. I hope that your life continues to be faithful and that you want to keep that door open, and invite people into your life to have those conversations. Little things like that, or if you're friends with your coworkers on social media, sharing, "We went to church on Sunday," or whatever, "This is my Bible study," or if you have a Bible study, putting it on your Outlook calendar and not making it private. If someone else can see your calendar, they're like, "Oh, they do a Bible study. That's kind of cool." I know my manager, she's really great. Sometimes I'll do like a Bible study in the morning and I'll just say, "Hey, I'm not going to be until 8:30." She's like, "No problem." Just making it known that that is a priority in your life,
Mm.
can be really, it can be actually really relieving to have those conversations. Say, "Hey, this is a priority for me. I have to go to Bible study in the morning. Is that going to work with my schedule?" Letting them know that it's a priority for you can be so changing.
Mm. I love that. So finding ways to externally show that you're a Christian, maybe even without verbally saying it, but having that Bible verse visible, whether it's on your desktop or maybe you have a plaque on your desk or,
Yeah.
a faith-based calendar book or notebook that you bring into a meeting with you. I'm just thinking of all sorts of ways that,
Yeah.
Bible verses can be implemented throughout your office in ways that show that you're a Christian without you even saying it. And
Yep.
I think that's a really cool idea, Nicole. So thank you for sharing that too.
Yeah. I'd also say another really subtle thing. And I just love it because it's so subtle, but it is so public. When people have necklaces, particularly women, when they have necklaces, just a cross necklace,
Oh,
like, that is just like instant. I look at them and go, "Okay, cool. Good to know.
yeah,
Cool to know about them." And they don't have to say anything. They don't have to do anything. They're just
yeah.
outwardly displaying their face in a necklace. And I think that that's cool, or a bracelet or a ring or whatever, what have you. But those are also really subtle ways that you can just let the world know that this is something you believe in. And you don't have to be like, "Hey, did you know I'm a Christian? Did you want to come to church with me?" You can do that. You totally can do that. But if you don't want to have those conversations with people you may not know, that's okay. Just open the door, put it on your computer,
Mm,
get a calendar, get a planner, whatever that is for you, whatever's most comfortable for you or the setting that you might be into.
I forgot about the cross necklace. I love that too. That is such a good idea, Nicole. Thank you for sharing that as well. Um,
Mm.
well, I guess I would like to wrap us up here. Is there anything else that you feel like you were wanting to share with our audience that maybe a question I've forgotten to ask, or something that you were hoping to share before we close?
Gosh, I don't think so. I think the biggest takeaway I hope people get from this is we're all reading the same book. So don't be afraid to talk to people that go to different churches from you. If you know that they're a Christian faith, you're reading the same book. And also don't be afraid to ask questions and not understand something. That's how we learn, and that's how we become deeper in our faith, is by asking questions and being able to have discussion and learning. I think that's the biggest thing. And also don't be afraid to offer to pray for people. And that sounds so silly when you say it out loud, but how often do we hear somebody going through a tragedy and we just go, oh, I'm so sorry, that sucks, and then that's all you say? Why not follow it up with, would it be okay if I prayed for you? Would it be okay if I told my prayer group about this and we all prayed for you? Would it be okay if I had my kids or my family or my grandma? I remember when my grandma was alive, I would text her all the time because she was so strong in her faith. I'd be like, hey, can you pray for this person? Thinking that, she's like got like a direct line
Special
to God.
connection.
She's like, so here's the situation. But I think that it's okay to just say, would it be okay if I prayed for you? Or if you know they're a Christian, would it be okay if I prayed with you? I had when I found out that Tia died, I was in kind of a tizzy and honestly kind of brain foggy, and I went back to work that day, which was dumb, because I was there for 5 minutes and I left. But I showed up and my coworkers walked in and they saw my face and they asked what happened, and I remember very blankly saying, my cousin died. And they both went like this, but they were two women that were in my Bible study group with me, and they immediately said, can we please pray for you? Pray with you. Can we please pray with you? And they just like huddled around me and started praying. And it was just the immediate, like they like sandwiched in between me and both started praying. And it wasn't weird at all, because we all knew we were all Christians. And it's so be willing to have those conversations, because you may not know when it'll come in handy or make things not awkward.
That's so beautiful. I think we need to pray for one another so much more. The power of prayer is so beyond what we even can imagine. I know we all know those people. My mom's the one that I always say, hey mom, can you pray about this? Because for some reason I think that I might pray for it and maybe it'll turn out okay, but if she prays for it, it's definitely gonna turn itself around. And there's something about certain people. We all have those prayer warriors in our lives. But I think, I aspire to be more like my mom, and I aspire to be more like your grandma in the terms of, being able to pray and have that real strong connection to God. And so I think that the only way we get better at prayer is by practicing it. And it's something that I think we can go throughout our day and be praying without ceasing, as God, commands us, pray without ceasing, and feeling like every small component, whether we're in the car or just before a meeting or our computer's taking too long to load, taking those moments to just have a moment of prayer, I think can be powerful. So Nicole, thank you for reminding us of the power of prayer. We're all reading the same book. It doesn't matter what faith denomination you are, whether you're Catholic or Lutheran or evangelical or Methodist, they're all Christians. And so going out of here today, I hope that also our listeners will take, instead of introducing yourself as, I'm Kelsey and I am an accountant, or whatever your job is. I'm not an accountant, thank goodness. I'm very grateful for accountants. I think, what would life be like if we didn't have them in our world? That is not
unbalanced, for sure. Unbalanced.
That is not my strong suit. But instead of saying the occupation, saying I'm Kelsey and I'm a Christian, I'm Nicole, I'm a Christian, and let's lead with our faith and watch the doors just open. I think that's so beautiful. So thank you, Nicole. I so appreciate you doing this podcast with me today. I'm grateful for our time together.
Yes, thank you so much for having and inviting me to do this. This was great.